the observations off the East Coast, we talked to other people in other squadrons with similar capabilities, and they were describing it the same way, the Cuban sphere. Same color, same, everything.
And does that seem indicative of things that you only see on the East Coast?
So far as I know, that again, I wish there was a better place to answer these questions, but part of the reason I don't have answers is because we've just refused to look at this for so long, right? There's just never been data collection so far as, I know. And so, these would be questions we could answer that if we had started looking at this 20 years ago, perhaps, that we could be answering now. But, we have to collect a lot of data. And, it's interesting because we have really two ways of doing that, right? There's leveraging the world's best sensors and things of that nature through the U.S. government. And, of course, all that is always going to be classified, and it's always going to be difficult. And then, on the other hand, there's really discovery, right? I mean, we don't have to just wait for the government to tell us, what's right and what's wrong and what's real on this topic, right? We are in an age now where technology and democratization of tools, essentially, and access to space, is moving it so, we can verify and move the topic forward without being hand-fed, perhaps, from the people with the world's greatest sensors. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. How many different types of these objects have you heard other people discuss? There's the circle that has the cube inside of it. There's this gimbal thing, which you don't really necessarily know what the shape is. But have people witnessed eyewitness accounts other than Commander David Fravor described something that he said looked like a Tic Tac. Mm-hmm. And I believe he said it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25 feet wide. Is that what something?
Sounds right.
So there's three, right? You don't know what the gimbal, the physical shape of it is. Then you have the circle with a cube inside of it, and then you have the Tic Tac. Mm-hmm. Are there more?
Probably. It's.
Have you talked to someone who's seen others?
On the East Coast, we were typically seeing what I've already described to you, all up and down. So even up in like the Patuxent River area outside of D.C., people were seeing them up there at the test pilot area. On the West Coast, like you said, I've heard the Tic Tac description, multiple times. Once kind of the word got out, I think, about the cube a bit and people were looking and paying attention, I started to hear about those being observed in other areas, such as the West Coast and further inland, actually, around other bases. But we still don't know necessarily if we're observing things there because they're there, because we just happen to have the sensors there, right? They could be in more places. We're just not necessarily looking there. So there's a huge aspect right now to observation bias.
In 2017, it was kind of a milestone moment for UFO, just the discussion, because the New York Times printed a story. And once it was on the front page of the New York Times, it was like, okay, this is a serious magazine, or this is a serious newspaper. And you have a serious discussion now about this thing that had been, for a long time, been ridiculed. And then the Pentagon discusses it. You start hearing people. Why do you think that's happening? Like, what is it about this subject? Like, it must have been for you in 2014 very bizarre when you have this new radar system that starts detecting these things. Now you get this understanding of the fact that these things are there all the time. You just haven't been able to put eyes on them, and you haven't had equipment that measured them accurately. Now you do, and now there's this discussion of it in the New York Times. What do you think is going on?
At the end of the day, I wish I had an answer for you. I don't. But, from where I'm sitting, I see a lot of people that seem to be paying attention more so now, especially after that article came out, myself included, right? I mean, I was part of it. I was witness to it. But, just like everyone else, I kind of just let it be part of my history until I saw that article pop on the New York Times. And I don't know why we are moving the conversation forward. I've listened to Chris Mellon talk about it. I've listened to Lou talk about it. And, it's very simple when I talk about it because it's very simple. It's just there are objects out there that our aviators are almost hitting. And for me, whenever I engage this topic, it's always from that perspective of aviation safety. So it's never really like engaging on this like crazy ontological like wave, right? It's me just working on a problem that I was trained for by the Navy. I was trained to be an aviation safety officer, right? So I see the signs of the safety problem brewing. People don't want to talk about it. It's taboo, right? That's not how aviation safety works. It doesn't live in silence in a cone like that. You need to share lessons learned. And the government gets it now. The DoD gets it. That's why the air crew have a reporting mechanism now. They can come back after their flight, after they've seen one of these objects, and they can report it. And, I understand that reporting mechanism has an area where they can describe the shape of it. So my hope is, we can answer that question of yours once that data gets released. I hope it will at some point. It's classified at the moment.
Do you have any understanding of how often these things get reported?
I don't know how often they're getting reported. My fear is that if aviators don't get feedback from the work you're doing, they're going to stop reporting, right? If you just keep reporting a safety hazard every day and it's just data collection and nothing solves it, then eventually you're just going to say, what's the point?
Right.
I'm going to just do my thing. And I've seen some declassified pilot reports. Some of these were from the UAP task force report that came out last year. And they're fascinating. The pilots are curious. They're seeing things they don't understand, right? They're seeing these interesting objects, massive winds. They're seeing formations of objects flying around, behaving in ways they don't understand. And they're looking for more. They're saying, hey, if you have any more questions, please reach back to me on classified if you need to. And my fear is that if they don't get that information back, that engagement with the people collecting that data, it's going to taper off. So, I just wanted to make the plea that we consider that it's a two-way conversation with those air crew.
Christopher Mellon, when I talked to him, he was saying that there's a lot more.
Eddie said he was a CIA.
It was before Eddie was deep into conspiracies. Back then, it was like he was like into UFOs and shit. It was barely into conspiracies. He's way off the deep end.
So
now.
you get into UFOs, man. That guy, God damn. Like, well, maybe it is true.
I'm scheduled to have a phone call this afternoon with George Knapp. He wants to brief me on all this shit. George Knapp is the guy that broke the Bob Lazar story in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And, and he shares my opinion. He's like, most of this is bullshit. Most of these people are liars. Most of these people are crazy.
Right.
But there's some real shit out there, too. Like a lot of these Air Force pilots, they have eyes on this fucking thing that's going 600 miles away in a second, like dropping down from 60,000 feet to 10 feet, like in a second.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. We don't know what the fuck this is. We have no idea how these things are doing this.
Right. And that's some hillbilly, like, just talking about Sasquatch.
Exactly. Yeah, it's Air Force pilots. Yeah. People who, they're trained to fly jets and have gunfights in the fucking sky.
Right.
These are exceptional human beings.
Yeah.
When they see things like that, you got to go, they know what the fuck they're seeing.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Every day, you could go out there and look in the sky and you don't see shit. You go, there's nothing up there because you're not seeing it. But if you go to a fucking lake, you're never going to see a shark. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean sharks aren't real.
Right.
It's like you're looking in the wrong spot or you aren't there when they show up. But they're real. So we have enough accumulated data to know that, there are sharks. They are real, but they're not in lakes. They're in the ocean. Here's where they are. This is how you find them. Go to South Africa. Oh, look, there's a shark.
Yeah, let's go to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah. Or fucking Catalina. Off of Catalina, there's a shit ton of them.
I worked a Boy Scout camp in Catalina, and I was teaching snorkeling. And that was like, the whole time I was shitting myself.
Oh, my God.
It's the nicest water in the world, though. It's so warm and salty. You just float,
We did fear out there a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, we did a couple of stunts.
Nice.
A couple of water stunts.
It's a cool. We stayed on the other side, like there's the hotels on the one side and everything. We were on the other side of the campsites. It was awesome. I was like 13 and I got so roasted. My entire body became one blister.
Oh, no.
Stupid. I was stupid.
No sunscreen?
None. Out there all day long. Yeah.
So I don't know if, UFOs are real, but it's certainly believable enough. It's not like the sky's empty. It's filled with stars.
So now after speaking with them, do you think we've had contact like that?
Hard to tell.
Yeah,
because they could have been lying.
Your own opinion, not for listeners, not for anybody else. Just you, when you're at home and you're chilling. Do you think it?
Don't know. I really, honestly don't know. I couldn't say yes or no. I'm more inclined now to think there's something going on than I was before I met Lazar and watched that documentary. Because I was on the, not that I was saying that aliens are not real. I think there's 100% life out there.
For sure.
Let's just say that.
It's too big.
Right. It just doesn't make any sense that there isn't.
Right.
It's the question of whether it ever has gotten here. It's the weird question. And it's also, the problem is that you feel foolish talking about it because so many people who believe in it are foolish. And so many people who tell stories, their stories are foolish. So you feel foolish kind of going along with it.
Right.
But I'm very careful about stuff like that because I'm like, just because something makes you feel foolish doesn't mean it's true. You know, like, or doesn't mean it
it's
isn't
wrong.
true. Yeah. So I definitely think there's a very high likelihood that there's life out there. And it's entirely possible that something's gotten here before. But as to whether or not something really has made contact with people, I don't know. If I would say, like, where's my scale, it's like probably 65% believe.
Yeah.
35% going,
Especially after talking to that guy.
Yeah. But what he could have experienced something that was an experimental aircraft that they didn't want to tell him.
Right.
You never know, man. I mean, I just don't know what the tech. Look, I'm a moron. Like, I don't understand physics at all. I have no knowledge of propulsion systems or mathematics, and I don't know what the top of the field in propulsion experts are capable of today. I don't know. There might be some shit that they're working on that they've never really perfected, so they've never actually implemented it in the battlefield or something like that, but they have some sort of a drone that looks like it would be filled with 3-foot-tall people, like these aliens that they described. I don't know.
And they're not going to fill you in on that. If you think it's aliens, then fine, it's fucking aliens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what that was? I mean, they're taking this guy who was a physicist from Los Alamos Labs who went to Caltech, and they sent him to these classes at MIT to learn fucking nuclear shit, and then they try to see if he can figure out how to back engineer something. They try to say, that doesn't mean it comes from another world. I mean, it could have been a Russian thing. It could have been something that the Germans figured out. I mean, I don't know. But I'm more inclined to believe him than not believe him.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was full of it, you know.
Exactly.
And just looking at him, he also seemed like he even wanted to be here.
He did. Just talking about it before we even got out here. It's like, I just gotta tell you, I'm getting a migraine.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Jeremy was trying to talk him into doing it. Like, we're gonna be fine, George. I mean, Bob, this is important. It's really good to do this, and we're gonna be able to really get the story out. But I think more people told me that they got more out of the conversation because it's just him talking, no spooky music, no edits.
Right.
And you get to see, like, he's honest about what he knows and doesn't know. And when he would say, like, what do you think about this? He's like, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, it's like, he wasn't a bullshitter.
He didn't rehearsed or full of shit, nothing.
No.
Like, what he was saying, if he didn't believe in that, at least to himself, what he was saying, I'd be fucking amazed.
And his story has not deviated in 30 plus years, which you can't. You try to have me tell a story of something that actually really did happen from 30 years ago, and I probably told it a bunch of different times.
I don't know what we still podcast.
Exactly.
With, you know?
It's hard, especially when my memory varies day to day. Like, some days it's awesome, and some days it's dog shit.
Yeah, it's crazy how that's on.
Yeah.
You've had a few concussions, right?
Oh yeah.
I have.
I think is like a key thing.
Yes.
I recently did a debunk of a UFO that the Chilean Navy supposedly saw.
What was that? I'm not aware of that one.
It was like this this thing. There was a Chilean Navy helicopter had this infrared camera, and they saw this two black dots off in the distance that looked like a weird thing, like a figure eight type thing flying away, and then it started like spraying out this stuff, and they couldn't figure what it was, and they chased after it, but it was too fast and it got away from them. And the Chilean government has an official UFO investigation team, and they set them on it, and they spent 2 years figuring out what it was, and they couldn't figure out what it was, and so they said it's a confirmed unidentified object. And then they published their findings, and then I and some other people on Metadebunk looked at it, and we figured out it was actually just a plane flying away from the helicopter, leaving some contrails behind, and we actually figured out exactly which plane it was. And so this got a bit of play online, and I was on like Huffington Post and things like that. And some UFO enthusiasts started talking to me, and I joined their groups, and I joined a few of the groups, and then I found myself in this kind of weird corner of the internet where everybody believes in UFOs unquestioningly, and they're always putting up these photographs of things, and people are like, "Oh, great capture, dude," and it's just something like a street light or something. But they think they have this confirmation bias, this group confirmation bias, where they can't disagree with someone, and they know they're in a safe space, so they can put out whatever theory that they like, and they know that people will be like, they're just very supportive of them.
Yeah.
Like, one that happened a couple of days ago, some woman put up a picture of a strange light that she said was in the sky. And so I downloaded the picture and I boosted the brightness, and I saw it was actually a reflection of something in a security light on a porch. And you could see it was like there was trees behind it, and it was a security light, and there's this reflection. So I posted that, and then I started getting called like a shill for pointing this out.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people who like said, "Oh yeah, it's just this light," but other people were like, "What the heck? Why don't you believe me? Why are you like invalidating like my claims?"
Right.
And so they want to have these kind of little walled gardens where everybody believes the same thing.
That's a good way to put it. The walled gardens. It really is a good way to put it, because that is what those communities seemed like, and that's one of the things that I found when I did that television show. I still harbored a few conspiracy theories before I did that show, but doing that show for several months and constantly interviewing people who believed in outlandish things, I found the same thing over and over and over again. Illogical people with very little evidence, believing things in almost a religious way. And I found it with Bigfoot, and I found it with UFOs, and I found it with chemtrails, and I found it with, it was just one after the other in varying stages of ridiculousness. I feel like contrails and chemtrails were the most nutty people. The UFO people seem to be the most reasonable, because it's the most reasonable theory out of all of them. The idea that we have spaceships, why doesn't someone else have spaceships? There's hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe, hundreds of billions of planets in each galaxy. The odds of there being some sort of a life form out there is pretty high, but there's nothing. That's the craziest thing. Like, the more I talked to these people, the more I went over all their evidence, air quotes evidence, the more I asked them why they believe things. There is nothing. There's not a goddamn thing that you can put on a scale. There's not a thing that you can weigh. There's not a thing that you can measure. There's not a thing that you can look at a photo and go, wow, that's compelling. There's not one. It's just an idea. And that idea is that there's something in the sky that flies around that we, either might catch if you're there, the right place, the right time, or not, and that they're from another planet. But
yeah, if you look at what's put forward as the best evidence, it's often like
nothing.
Cases from the 60s where there's an eyewitness who said something, like there was some guy on a road who says he blacked out and his car got messed up.
It's always that.
From the 60s.
Well, that thing that I know too much about psychedelic drugs, and I know about endogenous psychedelic drugs, the brain producing this chemical called dimethyltryptamine that happens when you're sleeping. Now, they've proven that this stuff is produced in the liver and in the lungs, and they believe they've got evidence that it's produced in the pineal gland. It's a very potent psychedelic drug that your brain produces, and your brain produces it during REM sleep. So these people, they all take naps. And during these naps, they have these crazy fucking dreams. And it's entirely possible that during these dreams, what happened is they got some endogenous DMT dump. Whether they were under stress or whether they just had an erratic dump of this human neurochemical that entered into their bloodstream, whatever it is that caused it. All these fucking UFO abductions, all of them, like almost exactly happen at night. And they happen while these people are sleeping. Like, wouldn't you just assume that you were dreaming? Like, why wouldn't you assume you were dreaming?
Yeah, I used to have these kind of night terror hallucination things, which were kind of like that.
Yeah.
And it was always the same type of thing. It was like a giant spider coming down from the ceiling towards me. And
you couldn't move?
It's like, frozen for a second, and then I would jump out of bed and turn on the light and look for the spider. And it happened all the time. I knew because there was no spider that it wasn't real, but I could see if someone was having a different type of hallucination that seemed a bit more real, and then it came in between sleep cycles for them. Then totally, you can see, because it seemed completely real.
Yeah.
I used to have them all the time, and it was always like, it was horrible. It was this like giant, really realistic spider, and it wasn't like I was dreaming somewhere else. I was in the room, and I could see it. Like I was seeing something crawling across the table right here. It was this hallucination. I don't really get them anymore. I don't know what it was. My brain's fixed itself or whatever. But
it's probably a lot has to do with being young and confused and hormones and nerves and then also like your brain starts filling in the blanks. If you don't have a very good understanding of the universe, and, your imagination runs wild. It was very confusing to me doing that television show, and it really changed me a lot. And it changed me to the point that people started accusing me of being co-opted by the government. That the government threatened my family and told me to stop talking about conspiracies. And then the idea that I wouldn't say that if that was the case. You don't think I would fucking tell everybody if someone threatened my family because I was talking about UFOs? I'd be telling everybody. I'd be like, hey, man. Yeah. I would tell all my friends. I'd be like, dude, they fucking threatened me because I was talking about UFOs. This shit is real. Hangar 18. Area 51.
I think there was a paper a while ago published, how many people it would take to cover up certain conspiracy theories. And the probability of none of those people ever talking.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. You can't have tens of millions of people in on a conspiracy about it.
What do you think happened at Roswell?
I think
Roswell, that's the big one. July 1947, I think a UFO crashed.
Yeah, I think it's what they said. What was those balloons that they were using to detect Russian nuclear bombs in the atmosphere, and it was a secret program, so they weren't allowed to tell anybody about it. So they came in, they picked up the remains of the balloon, and then the story just took off.
That's a funny one, though. Boy, that's made a whole town famous for UFOs. If you go there now, they have alien-themed gift shops.
They're milking it. It's like you said earlier, people make money out of something, and then they get stuck into that. So because they're making money out of it, they're motivated to promote whatever it is, if it's Bigfoot or if it's aliens.
Have you ever seen anything in all of your years of trying to debunk these things that made you question whether or not this was a legitimate phenomena?
What, the chemtrail thing?
Anything. UFO, chemtrail.
Well, with UFOs, there's always things that you can't explain. There are things that are unidentified, but there's usually plausible explanations for them.
Right.
I like to, whenever I'm given something like a mysterious thing, I like to list all the explanations that I can think of. And maybe none of them are a perfect fits that you can guarantee this is what the explanation is. But it being a ghost or an alien spacecraft as an explanation is usually pretty close to the bottom. You start out saying, oh, it's a balloon, or it's a bird, or it's a drone, or it's CGI, or it's it's something somebody faked afterwards,
right?
Or it's an alien spacecraft, or in between that, it's something else that we don't know what it is.
Is there any evidence, in terms of UFOs, that's interesting?
I haven't, to be honest, I haven't really looked into the whole sphere of UFOlogy. I know a lot of people have, but just looking at the quality of the best cases they put forward, like I mentioned earlier, some guy in 1964, got his car beat up on a road.
Right.
These are the top 10 best cases, and this was number 2 or something.
What about Bob Lazar? You ever looking at that guy?
Which was he
Bob Lazar supposedly worked at Area 51 and became a whistleblower?
No, I haven't. But a lot of it's something you see in the 9/11 community and in the chemtrail community is people kind of becoming celebrities.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start going on road shows, and they go to conventions and they speak, and then they write books, and then they start doing things, and they get sucked into their belief.
But what is your perspective after the incident versus before the incident? How much did it change the way you view the world and our place in the world?
For me, I never believed that we were alone. It's just me. I just look up and go, there's way too many stars up there for us to be the only one in life. After it, it makes it a little more clear to go, one, my questions are, where'd it come from? That's the biggest one. Where'd it come from? What was it doing? And then I've asked, why me? Why did I happen to be, because you can say wrong place, wrong time.
Right. Or right place, right time.
Or right place, right time. For me, it was, I think there's more out there. And if I could get word out to anyone, it's especially the debunkers of, one, quit trying to debunk it, because it is what it is. There wasn't a system glitch. This was a real incident that happened. And number 2 is, let's open our aperture a little bit and start thinking outside of the box. If you go, you look at it and go, hey, it's this non-reactive propulsion. Well, it's because when we came up with propulsion, the people long before us came up with a reactionary propulsion system, and that became our standard. Had we done something different where we developed non-reaction, we might look at something like a gasoline engine and go, holy cow, how's that thing work?
Right.
We wouldn't have that idea. So, I think there's, if you look at it and go, people thought Einstein was kind of nuts, and we're still proving his theories today. And what we're learning is that he was right. And he was right. There was a time when the Earth was flat, except for some people in California. The Earth isn't flat; it's round.
It's not just people in California; they're all over the place.
There's not an ice wall. So when you look at that and you go, a lot of the stuff that we thought was true isn't true. It's totally been changed. So for me, I just say, I think let's get outside of the box and go, if we can develop a technology that would, and I don't look at it from a military standpoint, because it would be a game changer from a military standpoint. Technology like that would be a game changer for mankind, completely. I mean, it would literally, everything that we do, and we don't know exactly, you could, do you want that system in a car? People have trouble driving in 2 dimensions, let alone 3.
Right.
It's kind of like your joke last night. I mean, you can't even handle the vaping thing, let alone driving a car that goes up, down, works in 3 dimensions.
Well, that was what they only wanted helicopters to be. They wanted to be flying cars.
Yeah, if you get out on the road, you see how people drive. And I always laugh because people think, well, we're 3-dimensional. Like, we know that this table is not the floor, but really humans are 2-dimensional people. And you learn that, especially when we would fight, if you can really work in the 3rd dimension, which is up, and you go, well, we are 3-dimensional. I go, no, if you look at like a tall building is, 1,700 feet high, the big ones. And you go, no, for an F-18 to do a split S, which is go from up here and just do a vertical 180-degree turn, so you're going this way and you go down here. It's like 2,500 feet. And that's tight. That's a tight turn for a jet, unless you're running like vectored thrust stuff. But everything has a cost. So if you do some big Hayaka, you bleed off energy. There's a cost associated with that. That, to a pilot, that's 3 dimensions. To most people on Earth, you go, no, I look at a hill and go, I don't want to walk up that thing.
Right.
And in an airplane, it's a totally different thing. So if we just open up that expanse, for what we're trying to do for technology and go, is there another way? Because we still build suckers and blowers, which is a jet engine. We just refine the internals, the turbines, to get them to be more efficient. Where I go, why don't you just put your efforts someplace else? Like I was talking to, there's a whole realm of physics that really doesn't get explained, and it's. I was talking to Steve Justice about it. It's more into the magnetics type side that we don't spend a lot of time on. And I know he said when he was working at Skunk Works, he did it's called IRAD, Internal Research and Development Money, that he would fund to try and look at some of these other technologies for propulsion. And he's now since retired, but really impressive to talk to him at the level that you can, which is, for us would be an unclassified level. But, the stuff that goes on behind closed doors, there's reasons for it, because if a technology like that got out where someone could rapidly reproduce it after all you've done, or they got it first, you think of the atomic bomb, Germans almost had it. We got it. Russians were working on it. We got it first. Changed the world. Literally changed the world when we detonated the first one. And you go, I'm not going to get into the politics behind it, but now we had it, and now it was the race everyone else because they had to get on equal par because it's a destabilizing thing. And now all of a sudden, if you develop a technology like this and you keep it to yourself, you've got something that no one else has, and it's a huge leap. I mean, it's a quantum leap. Do you share it because it's a mankind thing, or do you keep it for yourself? And that's right now. It's not for me to decide. I'm just Dave.
Well, it's fascinating that some other method of propulsion could have been established in some other place.
Yeah.
And that we're experiencing it, or that you've experienced it, and some other folks have experienced it in action. And I just think for us as people, as human beings in 2019, it's really easy to think that what we have now is so amazing, and that what we have now is the pinnacle of discovery, and that what we have now is, with our electricity and with our LED screens, and that we are experiencing like the height of technology. When if you're some creature from some other planet that is got easy access to element 115 and some gravity propulsion system, you're looking at us like we're digging holes in the side of a mountain to protect ourselves from the rain. We're cave people.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we here on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at like a first world, like the United States
Sure.
or, the developed nations, and then you go to some of these other and go, people are still getting their water out of a hole in the ground with a bucket.
Right, or people in rainforests that are living these indigenous lifestyles. Yeah.
So, take them something. I mean, take them one of these flat screens down to one of these tribes that no one's ever seen and go, hey, look.
Yeah.
And start showing them pictures of themselves that you're shooting real time or video that's feeding directly into it. They'll freak out.
They'll think it's
like,
magic.
Would you capture my soul?
Right.
So it's where are we at and what are we going to do and what can we do?
Did it change the way you look at life? I mean, even though you knew that, or you had this feeling that we were not alone just from looking at the stars, but when you actually see the thing, like how, I mean, I would imagine that has got to really shift your perspective.
I don't know if it shifted my perspective, but it was more of it's a validation.
A confirmation.
You go, yeah, I've always like, yeah, oh God, there's a lot of stars. And then you see something like this and go, well, maybe we're not. Because that pushes you to the next point to go, if one lands in my front yard, then I'll be 100% sure that we are not alone because it's sitting in my front yard. But, I mean, I got within a half mile of this thing, which is, people go, well, a half mile is pretty far away. Again, not when you're flying an airplane. Half mile is like really tight.
When they bring you have these conversations with high-level government officials, how long are these conversations?
So I've talked to 3 different groups of people.
This is post the New York Times article? So the New York Times article in 2017.
Yes.
And then our government.
The other pilot that was involved had been to D.C. multiple times. This is how I got in touch with Lou. She had called me and said, hey, I need to talk to you. So I called her and I said, what's going on? She says, hey, has anyone called you about the Tic Tac? And I said, no. She goes, I've been to the Pentagon like a half dozen times. And they'll take me in and anywhere from Starbucks to, inside of a vault. And she goes, and they'll talk to me about the story, and then they'll show me a picture. Something goes to look like this. And then she gets pretty frustrated and goes, we call it the Tic Tac because it looked like a Tic Tac. What part don't you get? I mean, go get a thing of Tic Tacs and look at them.
When they're saying, are they showing actual crafts that they have?
No, not pictures that they have, but a video from someone else. Like they'd show the gimbal video. Hey, did it look like this?
Okay.
And it was no. So... And that's when I told her, I said, well, just tell this guy that you're talking to, just give him my name and number. I go, I'll talk to him. It's not a big deal to me. And that started. So when I got asked, multiple times to go down and talk to people, one of them was supposed to be 20 minutes. And these are important people. Getting 20 minutes of some of these folks' time is like, that's a huge deal. So we went in thinking, okay, we're going to do the thing, 20 minutes, and then we're in. And an hour and a half later, we came out. I mean, that's the interest. And there were some, you get the group, the folks that come in and out, but there's a few that just sat there and were enamored by what we were saying. Like you're joking. We're like, no, this is all real. I mean, these are pretty senior officials that are taking the time out of their day to take this serious to go, maybe we do need to put a little emphasis on this. I mean, if literally if something can just show up at will and do whatever it wants, and I'd probably at least pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention. What could be done? I mean, what could they do? If you put yourself in a position of one of these high-level government officials, what do you do? Just spend more money on looking at them?
Look at money, though. I mean, I know when the article came out and they talked about the ATIP program that Harry Reid got funded $22 million over 5 years. So it's $4.4 million a year. And you go, everyone's freaking out. Oh, it's $22 million. I go, no, it wasn't $22 million a year. It was $4.4 million. That's not even in the rounding error for the United States. We just got approved, it was $750 billion for a defense budget. $750 billion. If you took $100 million out of that, it's not even going to put a dent. And I go, why can't you? If you're only spending $4.4 million a year, and you can actually get some good work done, because you don't need a huge team, because you figure if you look at, I think what's the number, like 10-15% of all these UFOs, like if you look at Project Blue Book, really remained unexplained. And you go, okay, so you can weed out, you can read out me flying over someone in a campfire and lighting my afterburners. So you can go, no, that was Dave being Dave. So you can weed that stuff out. Now you go, now I'm really kind of concentrating the funds. The most important thing, and I talked to the folks when we were talking, because we talked about funding, and I said, let me leave you with this. And I had got some pretty good stuff. I was talking to Chris Mellon, who's a former undersecretary and understands how the government works. So it was where he gave me some really good feedback. And I talked to him, I said, look, I'm all for you guys funding a program. But what you need to do is fund a program that there's going to be oversight over. When I say oversight, I mean, because what happens is you go, here's money, but we're going to distribute it in the government. So we're going to distribute it to these 3 different agencies across the United States government. So, I don't just call them agency A, B, and C. So you give it to them, and I'll go back to like the 9/11 stuff where we really had the answer, but all the agencies weren't talking to each other to put all the pieces together. And that's my fear, that you go, hey, we're going to take $100 million of taxpayer money. We're going to fund a program to actually seriously investigate this stuff and look at the technology. But there are 3 different entities working on their own and not talking to each other. So there's got to be a joint collaboration to where we go, we're going to do it, but, Joe's going to be in charge, and you guys are all going to play nice in the sandbox together because we want to get our money's worth, because people will raise the fraud, waste, and abuse flag that we're wasting money on something stupid.
When you discuss the cosmos, maybe the single most intriguing possibility to us as human beings is what other intelligent life, if any, is out there. And how interesting is that to you? Because you spend so much time studying the fundamental particles of the universe itself. How interested are you in the possibility of other intelligent life forms? Or have you just like put that out into it's just so ridiculously unlikely or so far away from us that we're probably never going to make contact?
Well, it's not so. The SETI program, where they're looking at to see whether they can see signal of distant civilizations. The problem there, from my perspective, is that although they might be out there, they've got to have had a real head start on us before you would see them. Of course, they might have. So, but then, I don't know. You see, actually, Vahir Gurzajan, who's my Armenian colleague, and who also for these ring-shaped things, and looked at them in a different way from the Polish people, but we seem to have something there. But we wrote a paper in which we speculated on beings from the previous eon communicating with us. And the advantage there is looking at the really advanced civilizations,
really
right at the very
edge,
you see.
Billions of years ago, that their universe disappeared and then had to come back to a Big Bang state again.
Signals could come.
Or another, those signals remain.
It's pretty far-fetched, but, who knows what...
So how many billions of years are you talking about? Like the Big Bang was 14 billion?
Yes. See, that's way at the beginning, in a sense, or it's 3/4 of the way through, in a sense. It depends how you draw the pictures.
Right.
In a sense, interestingness, or in the conformal picture, we are already 3/4 of the way through.
So 15 billion to now, so we have
But
how many billion
You can't count
left?
it as years, you see. The year count is as much as you like. It depends on something. The mass has to fade out, and how you measure time becomes problematic. And it's either infinity, you see, which isn't much use, or you might have a different definitions of time, which depend on what particle you use, your clocks and things like that.
So are you essentially saying that it's entirely possible that we are the furthest in terms of our technological achievement and our understanding of the universe itself? It's possible that we're at the front of the line, that there might be some other intelligent life forms in the universe, but they might be behind us.
Well, they mean... I'm not saying they got through, you see. Well, maybe they have techniques through, but that's a bit hard to imagine. But information from them could get through, and maybe...
From the previous eon?
Yes.
Oh, they might have got through, like somehow or another survived.
Yeah, but it would have to be in the form of photons or something. Yeah, no, it's not... I'm talking about ridiculous speculation.
Sure,
now.
but coding information into photons?
Yes.
Wow.
It's conceivable.
Sure.
Now, I don't want to say that I see it happening or anything. It's not out of the question that they could develop some technology which would get information, which might be them, in some sense, across in the form of photons.
But you're not optimistic about current intelligent life somewhere in the universe?
Not too optimistic, just because... well, maybe it took us a long time going because the dinosaurs were there for a while, and somebody might have got in earlier in their different planet, and they could have got there quite ahead of us. It's conceivable. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just not terribly optimistic about it. No, I think it's worth doing. It's worth...
Yes, but it's not that you're really curious about.
It's not so much I'd be curious, certainly, but I'm not expecting it, I guess.
Is it just because of the overall lack of real evidence, and it's just not an attractive
Well,
thing for you to pursue?
Quite attractive.
It sure
I
would
don't
be. If
know.
it was
I've
here.
just been doing other things, and I don't know. There's enough to do. I haven't really come to terms with it very hugely. So I know there's this activity, and I'd be interested to see if any kind of, if there was this thing that came past that some people speculated was sent there by a different intelligence, which came quite in our solar system.
Oh, that was that strange cigar shaped.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any real believe it's a alien spaceship.
Was it because it was traveling? That was the idea?
It was thing.
Something curious about it?
Serial people did suggest it might be something sent by an alien civilization. Well, it's worth, if one could connect with it in some way. But I don't know. I guess it's too far now.
Well, it's so uniquely fascinating for us, the concept of another life form out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
See, I don't have a desired outcome. I mean, I would love it if aliens were real.
Okay.
But when someone starts talking about disinformation and propaganda campaigns, but they want you to believe them.
Right.
But don't listen, I'm here telling you the truth. I'm here telling you the truth.
I'm not saying I'm telling you the truth at all. That's why I was
No,
like,
not you.
Joe, let's wait
For
till
sure not
hour
you.
3 because it's too explosive. People have such a horse in the race already.
With aliens, you think?
Well, I mean, maybe you are neutral. I don't know. I know I'm neutral.
Yeah, I will listen. I absolutely want aliens to be real. 100%.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
I'm not neutral, but
Okay.
I am neutral in my perceptions. And when I look at things, I go, I don't know about that.
Me too.
I want to see a picture. Like, what do these guys look like? I mean, what did they do to them? Did he describe what kind of surgical alterations?
I stayed with the source. I mean, after the book published, I would go and visit him. We'd sit in a Chinese restaurant and eat and talk, and I would try to get a droplet of information out of him.
And what was he doing?
Oh, my God.
Avoiding it?
He avoided it. I mean, look, here's another thing. When the book came out, his wife of 65 years knew it was him, okay? And I went out to Las Vegas and sat there in a room with the source and his wife. And she said, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you made this all up, to her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's the truth. I mean, that's a triangular version of getting at the truth. But again, to reiterate, I believe he believes what he told me was the truth. That was the truth he was told.
I think there's certain agents that think it's fun to fuck with reporters and journalists and make things up. I really do. And I think especially when they're talking about secret information that they were sworn to protect. And then all of a sudden they want to talk to someone that they don't even know on the sneak tip. Let's meet at a diner. I'm going to tell you everything.
That's not how we met.
Well, I mean,
Right.
however you met.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Well, we
saying?
met because I was interviewing nuclear weapons engineers who were setting off nuclear bombs in Area 51, in the Nevada test site, Area 12, Area 23. And they all said to me, you've got to talk to the top engineer of all this weaponry. And they gave me his name. And we talked for days and hours about nuclear weapons. And then, in one conversation, he began to cry and told me this story that I was like, what? What?
Why was he crying?
He was crying because he participated in our version of the human experiments. Because what the Russians do, we do. Look, I've written 5 books about this.
We altered people to make them look like aliens?
According to him, we had a small program in 1951 where we wanted to see how the Russians did what they did, how they made human beings look like this.
So what'd they do? Take prisoners or something? Like what? Who do they alter?
He said they were handicapped children.
Oh, Jesus.
And he told me that he participated in this. So again, I mean, unless you have someone that lost their mind at age 90 and was willing to tell their wife of 65 years, I lost my mind.
So he's saying that he participated in something that altered handicapped children. When you say handicapped, you mean like Down syndrome or something like that? And they made them look like aliens and then killed them? Like, what did they do with this?
This is where we get into drops of information coming out. But what I can say is he had a grandchild that was born that way. And And the grandchild did not live long. The grandchild died. And it made him feel so guilty about what he had done that he felt compelled to confess, if you will. And I remember saying to him, why are you telling me this? Why don't you tell a priest? And he said, a priest would judge me, and I can tell you won't.
Why wouldn't you judge him? I'd judge him.
Well, I guess that's why I'm a born journalist, Joe, because I really try not to judge people. I mean, my new book, Surprise, Kill, Vanish, it's about assassins. It's about people who work for the CIA, who do what needs to be done on the ground in the name of national security. I don't judge them. This is why, what's really at issue here is morality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can I tell you how I got the idea for this book?
Sure, but let me, before we go any further, so...
You want to talk about the aliens?
Yeah. Was he saying that there have never been any encounters with alien spacecrafts?
He was totally neutral about aliens. He had nothing to do with aliens. He could have cared less. He didn't watch the X-Files.
And what was his take on Bob Lazar?
His take on Bob Lazar was that he probably saw something that the government had an extension of the program. I mean, he didn't know. That was speculative. We didn't talk about that. I mean, other than inference. He was very limited in the information that he would get out. But, I mean, I used 79 sources in that book that all went on the record in name. And he was the one anonymous source. But like I said, he told me after he died that I could tell the whole story.
Are you going to?
I might. I might come back.
Write another book?
Well, if you give me a break and back off of this subject, I might come back and tell you and your audience
What are you saying back off
his
the subject?
name.
This is your book. I want to promote your book. I know you want to promote your new book, but I want to promote this book as well.
I mean, I'm teasing you, right?
I know you are.
But it's like, it's an astonishing story. And I think the best line of all is that people that read about that in the very end of what we did, they go, I wish they were aliens.
So Stalin created some sort of a craft that mimicked...
You're going to read it.
Okay.
That's what you're going to do the rest of the afternoon. Nope. I'm going to come back on your show after you read it.
And we're talking. I think we should probably get into this a little bit.
Okay. Come on with the questions.
Okay.
I'm used to asking the questions.
Are you? Oh, right. As a journalist, yeah. Now, Stalin and the Russians created something that mimicked a UFO, something that looked like it would be from another planet. Is that what they did?
Mothership. Mm-hmm. In those days, drones were... There was a mothership and a drone was attached to it, and it was jettisoned off. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, according...
In those days?
Well, in 1947, 48,
What do you mean by...
Well, they didn't... I mean, that was drone technology then.
Okay.
Right? So there's a mother craft, like an aircraft, and then the drone is like a small aircraft under it, and it gets jettisoned off. And that was what the craft was. It was jettisoned off. So Stalin actually, according to the source, invaded our airspace, which was the deep embarrassment to Truman.
So he invaded our airspace and then let this drone crash land on the ground with these things that turned out to be human.
Yes.
They looked like aliens, but they turned out to be humans that were manipulated surgically to look like aliens.
Yes, as a way to, and remember, I mean, not remember, but where this was, very close to a nuclear weapons base, to our White Sands military base. I mean, this is like not a place you want the Russians to be able to get near.
Right.
I mean, what was interesting is at Area 51, we then went out and mimicked all of those. One of our early drones was a mimicry of that. It was there was a M21, which was the mothership, and a D21, which was the daughter ship. So
how did they pilot them? Was it wirelessly like we do now?
No. Then it was like there was a pilot in the mothership, and they kind of let it go. Right, and it flew off. I mean, there's incredible stories of what the CIA was able to do out there at Area 51 with their air branch, The technology, they're always ahead of technology. That's what's remarkable.
Well, what Bob Lazar did film that was really shocking was the filming of these drones flying around and performing these really you've seen those videos, I'm sure, right?
In the 80s, it gets really crazy with what they're able to do and what they're... But, I mean, why I like looking at history is because you can see the progression, you know? You see how science evolves, bit by bit. And then there's these great breakthroughs because what the government is always looking for is called a revolution in military affairs, right? And that's certainly what drone technology did. later on as drones became developed after the Vietnam War.
So in the 1980s, when Bob Lazar was filming all this stuff, you think this was similar to the technology that we see publicly described today in terms of like what drones are capable of?
Sure. I mean,
So
that's
they probably
that,
had something like that back then.
When the F-117 was revealed during the first Gulf War, that aircraft was being developed for 25 years out at Area 51. Actually, at Area 52 was where they had it set up to develop that stealth technology. Think about, and what was amazing, talk about keeping secrets. They had something like 10,000 people working on that. No one knew about it. That story was never broken by the press, not by anyone. It just suddenly appeared in the Gulf War and took out Saddam Hussein's, facilities. That's a revolution in military affairs. What becomes interesting is then it becomes obsolete because now everybody knows about it and everybody's going to mimic that. And now you have to have a new weapon system, and that's the military-industrial complex.
So was this drone aircraft that was released from the mothership, was this capable of autonomous flight, or was it just they just threw it out there and let it crash?
The latter, right? And remember, that information I am very limited to. That's why it's 12 pages. It's like the source gave me these little bits of information, which I felt was important to include because it speaks to the big issue. Why is Area 51 classified? I mean, now it's not. President Obama was the first president to actually say Area 51 publicly. Some people say because of my book, right? Meaning it was out. The secret was out. But before that, I went through 10,000 pages of documents from the National Archives. And every place you see, the word Area 51 was actually redacted. Right? Why would you keep that so secret? I mean, all the guys that I was interviewing say they could call it, Groom Lake. They could call it the test facility. They could call it Paradise Ranch. But they couldn't say Area 51. Why? And the source said, well, because we did this horrible program out there, and the government doesn't want anyone to know about that ever. I mean, there's stories of, like, somebody asking Bill Clinton, about Area 51, him going white. I mean, human experiments? Who wants to be part of that? It's horrible.
But the human experiments were they limited to this mimicry of the Russian experiments where they were trying to get people to look like aliens, or was there something else going on?
Well, my goodness. I mean, you read now the declassified documents tell us how many different human experiments were going on around nuclear weapons, okay? Horrible experiments where they were subjecting people to radiation because they wanted to know. They felt, well, it's more important to know what happens to people than to not know. And so they would take groups of people that, say, had cancer or something and test them. So there's no doubt that the government has experimented on humans. It's just, is that something that is wise to make public? And, there's two sides of the coin on that. I mean, you when you reveal these kind of things, when you write about them, I mean, people get really upset and, vilify the government, partially with good reason, and partially it's like bad for national security. So I think that's the justification on the part of the Defense Department to keep things secret.
That makes sense. Wow, that's an interesting take that I never thought of before. But if I was Stalin and I was trying to, air quotes, fuck with the Americans, that's maybe the way I would do it. Hey, man, you got a problem. Aliens, they're coming. And it's hard for people that live in 2019, especially if you're young, to really imagine a world not only without the internet, but with 2 television channels, right? And radio, which was where people got all their information from. I mean, was there 2 channels? How many channels were there in 1947? Maybe 3? Maybe 3.
I mean, it was radio in World War II, right? Most people had radio.
Yeah, mostly radio and newspapers, and that's where people were getting their information.
Right.
And there was a mass hysteria where people were absolutely terrified that we were going to be invaded, which is why when Orson Welles' War of Worlds, which when they released it, when they did it on the air, they were very clear that this is going to be a reading of Orson Welles' War of Worlds book. Or that H.G. Wells, excuse me. War of Worlds, right? It was H.G. Wells' book, and Orson Welles read it.
Yes.
And when they were talking about this on the radio, a lot of people missed that part, right? And so as the radio went on, as the broadcast went on and people were tuning in later in the day, it erupted in mass hysteria. People were freaking out. Hundreds of thousands of people really did think that it was, and it was also something that was recreated in other countries. I don't know if you know that. They did that in other countries in different languages when they saw how cute it worked in America. And, you know.
Well, so you see,
Yeah.
you can see the logic. I mean, at first it sounds absurd and it sounds
does,
ridiculous.
yeah.
And that's why I was sweating, because it's like,
I know.
right?
Right.
But when you think it through, and I challenge you to read the whole book, because you start piecing together these various ideas and disinformation becomes less vague and more specific, and you go, that's how it works. And you begin to see how people's perception and how they're easily manipulated factors into national security, just like you just described. Stalin knew about that. He was a master. He was the master of propaganda. He invented it. I mean, he didn't invent it, but he invented it in on the political stage to be used to mess with another country's perception of things. Think of what he did with brainwashing, right? Okay. So like in the 50s, and this is journalists, said, so there was a journalist who was putting out stories about brainwashing. And there was this idea, which is well taken, that totalitarian governments brainwash people. And this became a big code word. It was introduced into the American lexicon in 1950. Well, then we're in the Korean War. Our pilots start getting shot down. They're put on TV by the communists saying terrible things about America, the American pilots. And suddenly it was like, they've been brainwashed. It was very convenient to have that story. So these things work part and parcel, and you've got all kinds of smart people behind the scenes knowing this, looking at it, examining it, and using it to their advantage to stay where? In the pole position. That's the goal of the U.S. government.
So the propaganda that we did that sort of copied Stalin's, we're kind of playing catch up in that sense.
I mean, we're playing catch up, then we're ahead, then we're behind. It's always a game. You're a competitor, you know this.
But that's a crazy thing to do, to make a fake spaceship and just let it slam into the ground with a bunch of people that you cut up to look like aliens. Did he say specifically what kind of modification they made to people that made them look like aliens?
I got drips. And you'll read it in those 12 pages.
Come on with this 12 pages.
I'm telling you that because you're asking me these questions that as if I spent... I mean, look, I did spend literally hundreds of hours with this source. We sat there and talked about everything, and I would try to squeeze out, just like you're trying to squeeze out of me, and that's why I'm saying read it, because I literally tell you everything that there is. I think what's most interesting about the source and why I might come back and talk to you about it and tell you who he is on your show is because of his backstory, right? Why he did what he did, how he wound up in the Manhattan Project.
Sounds like he was probably Jewish from Germany. No?
No.
All right,
No.
I'm trying.
Okay.